Welcome to the PJ Who Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and if this is your very first time checking out my podcast, first and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out my podcast. On my podcast, I mainly talk about the NBA, but I also like to cover college, high school, and international basketball. Today's episode, we're going to actually be starting our 2025-2026 season preview of all 30 teams. Today's episode, we're just going to focus on just the Atlantic Division. Now, within the Atlantic Division, I'll be talking about Boston, the Knicks, the Nets, Philadelphia, and the Toronto Raptors. I want to give you guys the topics that I go over for all 30 teams. I did this last summer and received really good feedback. So I was like, I wanted to bring it back again this year. So the 5 topics that I go over for all 30 teams, I go over the free agency, if there's, upcoming free agents that they're going to have, or even contract situations that I'm kind of just interested in following. I'll also talk about the rookies. So in a segment I like to call Rookie Watch. And then also I'll talk about the team's expectations and then kind of like my thoughts on the team. And then I'll talk about players to watch for on the team or even maybe a coach. And then I'll close it out with talking about the team's draft capital. Now, before I get started on today's episode, I just want to let you guys know this is being recorded Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. And we're just going to dive straight into it. So my first team that I'm going to talk about is going to be the Boston Celtics. Now, Boston last year finished the season 61-21. They finished second in offensive efficiency and fifth in defensive efficiency. So we're going to dive straight in. We'll talk about their free agents first very briefly. So upcoming free agents, they traded for Anthony Simons, but Anthony Simons will be a free agent next summer. I know Boston, there's been rumors. I don't how true the rumors are, but I know Boston potentially has been shopping around Anthony Simons because they don't see him long term, but he'll be a free agent next summer. They got George Niang and Xavier Tillman. They'll also be free agents next summer. And then Jordan Walsh has a team option next summer. So rookie watch for them is they drafted Hugo Gonzalez. I actually talked about Hugo Gonzalez last summer during my FIBA episode. He played for Spain, and I liked what I seen out of him last summer. I felt like defensively he would be somebody that I could, see making an impact on the NBA team. And I think this year, going into this specific season, I think we could potentially see him and Jordan Walsh playing because I don't want to say too much, but I do think Hugo Gonzalez has a chance to find his way on the floor this year based off of his energy and defense, his defensive ability. I think he'll find his way onto the court this year. Offensively, I think he still has room to, grow into whatever player he's going to become. But defensively, I think he'll be able to make an immediate impact, and I think he will cut the rotation this year. So now I want to talk about the team expectations and / my thoughts about this team. Just so you guys know, for team expectations / thoughts, I'm going to try to be a little vague. It's going to be kind of hard. Last year I did a pretty good job at it, but I kind of also just really want to be a little bit more direct at the same time. But anyways, let's talk about Boston team expectations / thoughts about them. Okay, so for me, in my opinion, I think it's no surprise that this is a gap year for this team. As soon as Jason Tatum went down, my literal mind went to, this is unfortunate. This sucks that this is happening. For one, because he's having an amazing game. But shortly after I thought about it, I was like, Boston's going to be probably a top 10 lottery team next year. Like, that's literally what my mind went to. And yes, it's unfortunate that Tatum got injured, but I think that also in the long run will allow this team to have a longer runway. They needed to get younger anyways. So I do think Boston is – I don't think Boston's going to make the playoffs next year. I know I said I'm going to try to be vague, but I just got to be honest. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year. I do think they will be a lottery team. And if they get a top 5 lottery pick, watch out, because this next year's draft, and I know people have been saying it for a while. Oh, you guys are always saying the next draft is going to be low. They're going to be low. No, this is one of them ones, I think, that even if you get a guy you draft him 5th, I think you got a chance to really get a really, really talented player. And I think Boston is going to have a really good chance at landing in the top 5 not because their record's going to be necessarily that bad, but I think the NBA, we know how the NBA works, okay? Like, we know and not even just the NBA, all sports are rigged to an extent. We know that. And I think what better way for the NBA to keep the Celtic brand relevant, relevant and, at the top once Tatum get back than to give them a top 6, top 7, draft pick of a player, right? And I think that's likely. I think that's what's going to happen. And I told a couple Celtics fans that I know personally, I told them, I was like, I think you guys are getting ready to get probably a top 5 pick in the draft. And they're going to play with Tatum and Brown and White. And yeah, that's going to be that. So that's something I'll be paying attention to. I just think they're going to get a high lottery pick. I do. So now I want to talk about my players to watch for on this team. One being Jaylen Brown. I think that's no surprise to most people. I am very interested to see what else. I'm interested to see how he does when he doesn't have, when the team is lacking star power. I have people telling me he's a top 12 player in the NBA, and I want to see it. So I think if he can give me something like 27, 8, and 6 on really good shooting splits, then okay. But yeah, I just want to see what Jaylen Brown's made of when he doesn't have even a stacked roster, okay, but even just a competent roster around him, when he has a bunch of pieces around him that are going to depend on him to lift them, right? If he can get this team, I ain't gonna lie, if he can get this team to the play-in and be a 7 seed, make the playoffs and be a 7 seed, I will tip my hats to Jaylen Brown. I will concede he's a top 12 player in the league. But that's what I want to see out of him. I do want to see that. Another player that's on my players to watch for, I kind of said his name earlier, is Jordan Walsh. Jordan Walsh has yet to carve out, rotational minutes on this team yet. Jordan Walsh was a 5-star recruit out of Arkansas, and I really liked him coming out of Arkansas a lot. Actually, I thought he was the best all-around player on that Arkansas team, and his teammates at the time, it was him, Ricky Council, the 4th, and they had one other guy. Moses Moody was on that team too. But I thought Jordan Walsh was the best out of all of them. He has yet to crack, the Celtics rotation. I think this is a year that he will crack the rotation. And to me, he was the best defender on that Arkansas team. So I'm just interested to see how he is, because this would be year 3 or year 4. No, he's going, I think it's a year 4. I believe this is year 4 for him. So I believe it's a contract year for him. So I'm going to be watching him closely. I told my OG, watch out for Jordan Walsh. So I think Jordan Walsh is due to at least make it known he's a rotational player in this league. Another player is Baylor Shireman. That's another player I want to talk about to you guys. Kind of same thing. I'm kind of interested to see how he does with a larger role on this team. I liked him at Creighton. I think he's an older player. And to me, can he become just a defined 3-and-D player? That's what I'll be looking out for with him. Now I want to talk about their draft capital with you guys. So draft capital, 2026, 2027, they own their pick. 2028. Oh, I don't know why I didn't write down the 2020. Yeah, 2026. Yeah, 2026 and 2027. I'm sorry. They own their picks. 2028, it's top 1 protected. Otherwise, the Spurs have swap rights with them. 2029, the Portland Trailblazers own their pick. 2030 and 2031, they keep it, and then 2032 is frozen currently. So that is the Boston Celtics. You guys let me know down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on Boston heading into this year, and what are your expectations, and who are players that you guys are going to be watching out for on this Boston Celtic team? The next team that I want to talk to you guys about is the New York Knicks. Now, New York last year finished 51-31. They finished 5th in offensive efficiency and 14th in defensive efficiency. So some of New York's free agents coming up. Mitchell Robinson's going to be a free agent. Jordan Clarkson to be a free agent. Yabusele, he'll have a player option. And that's kind of New York's, the top core guys are all pretty much locked in. And then free agency, rookie-wise, they had no rookies, so we'll skip that with them. And now I want to talk about the team's expectations / my thoughts about them. They for sure upgraded their bench. I think Mike Brown will no doubt use the bench a lot more. thing that is kind of concerning within the bench is obviously, you have Mitchell Robinson, but also Jordan Clarkson has had quite a few injuries and has not been, consistently healthy. So hopefully him being in a winning environment, hopefully that, kind of prompts him to take care of his body a little bit more, and he's a little bit more durable being in New York. I think here we go. I think I didn't count last year against them because that was the first year with all those players. But I think from this year, I think the next 3 years, I think they have a 3-year window to win a title. I think this is the beginning of that 3-year window. And then I think most importantly is, can Mike Brown coach this team up to become a top 10 defensive team? Can they commit themselves to the other end of the ball, like on the other end of the court? Can they commit themselves to that? Can they become a top 10 defensive team? Or even, because last year they finished 14th. So I don't see, I see why they couldn't become a top 10 team, but they should be able to. This is year 2 with the same core. Yes, you have a different coach, but also you're going to have you're probably going to have more player movement and more ball movement, which should in turn allow for players like Jalen Brunson and hopefully Karl Anthony Towns to at least observe themselves more, assert themselves more on defense, So I'm hoping they should be able to become a top 10 defensive team. If the ball's moving, it's not being monopolized by those 2 players, they should be able to give more on that end of the court. I think this team has a great chance at winning 57 to 60 games. And some people may think that's outlandish or crazy, but they won 51 last year. The East, I think the top end of the East has kind of dwindled down a little bit. So there's going to be games to be had. And I think they have a good chance at winning 57 to 60 games. And now, so I want to talk about my players to watch for on this team. First, his name is, I hope I don't botch his name. What's his name? Pacom? I cannot pronounce his name. Diat? I can't even pronounce his name. I'm mad at myself. But I'll put his name up in the corner for you guys. I'm very interested to see what he brings this year, though. Can he become a consistent player off the bench for this team? I really like his jump shot. I think he's going into year 3, I think. I think it's going to be year 3 for him, if I remember correctly. Maybe year 2. I think this is year 3 for him. Maybe no, I think it might be year 2. He's only 20 years old, but I think he's a native of France. I just can't pronounce his name, and I'm mad at myself for that, but I just can't. So yeah, so he's on my players to watch for list. And then another player is Jalen Brunson. Is this MVP season? Is this going to be MVP season for Jalen Brunson? That's all I wrote for him. That'll be something else I'll be watching out for. And then lastly is a coach, Mike Brown. I think he's been, being in Golden State, he had a chance to mature. Even being with Sacramento, he had a chance to mature, Sacramento was never a championship material team, but now he's at a team that has championship aspirations. I think this is the last ride and last stop for Mike Brown. I don't think he'll be another head coach for another NBA team if this doesn't work out in New York. So I'll be watching out all season long, like down the stretches of games. How does he, what plays is he running and how does he use what's at his disposal? And obviously, most importantly in the playoffs, what does he bring to this team is what's really going to matter the most with Mike Brown. It doesn't matter about winning Coach of the Year. Doesn't matter about having an MVP on his team. Doesn't matter if Jalen Brunson wins MVP. Let me correct myself. All that's going to matter is, can Mike Brown deliver the goods and make the necessary adjustments for this team to win the NBA title? Not just get to the NBA title, but win it. That's something that's the most important thing to me pertaining to Mike Brown. Let's talk about their draft capital. 2026, they have their own pick, and then Washington's pick if it's 9 through 30. If Washington's picks don't convey in 2026, it turns to 2 second-round picks. 2027, it goes to Brooklyn. 2028, they get the least favorable of their own Brooklyn, Phoenix, and Philly's 9 through 30. 2029, it goes to Brooklyn. 2030, they have their own. 2031, it goes to Brooklyn. And then 2032 is their own. You guys let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on this New York team and what things within this New York team are you guys going to be looking out for? The next team that I want to talk to you guys about is the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, Philly last year finished 24-58. They were 22nd in offensive efficiency, 26th in defensive efficiency. We'll start off with their free agents. So you got Andre Drummond, Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, and Kelly Oubre will all be free agents next summer. I know Kelly Oubre is somebody that I think even maybe Andre Drummond, actually a combination of a couple of those players. I know Philly's trying to get off of them so they can re-sign Quentin Grimes, which, I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea. Also, Trent Warford, it has a team option. And I want to talk about the rookie watch because they drafted VJ Edgecombe. I think VJ should be starting day one. Honestly, I'll be surprised if he's not starting by Thanksgiving or sooner. I think he's someone that I've talked a lot about and I've been very high on even since last summer when I talked about him. I think that, and I'll say it again, and I've been saying it every time I talk about VJ, I always say this. I thought last summer he was the best player on that Bahamas team at the age of 17. I thought he was the best player on that team, and that team consisted of they had Buddy Hield, they had DeAndre Ayton. I believe Klay Thompson was on that team too. Don't quote me on that, but I think he was on that team too. But watching him last summer play with the Bahama national team, I thought he was the best player then, and I stand by that even today. But yeah, VJ's somebody that even during my pre-draft episode, I said VJ was somebody that they should draft. I thought even months ago, a couple months back, I said it. Even before the draft, I was like, VJ, like that's the kind of player they need to be starting next to Tyrese Maxey. You know, like Jeremy McCade is going to be he's going to be a good scorer. But him and Maxey in the backcourt, that's just like another poor man's version of Dame and CJ in the backcourt. You just can't do that, you know? So McCade coming off the bench will be great for them. So now I want to talk about my team expectations / thoughts about this team. In my opinion, this team, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys will agree with me, by far has the highest ceiling and the highest floor and the lowest floor in the NBA. I think it's not even close. They can easily win the NBA title, not easily, but they could either A, win the NBA title or be back in the top 5 of the lottery. I think truly healthy. I think if this team is healthy, I know Joel Embiid has had his playoff woes, but also for the most part, they've always had injuries going into the playoffs. I think if they're healthy, I think this team I think they're the team to beat in the East. I know some people will say Cleveland, some will say the Knicks, but if we're talking fully healthy, give me Philadelphia. I think they're very deep, and I think the basketball gods, hopefully this is the year that, they bless them. But yeah, I mean, I think if they're healthy, I don't think Cleveland or the Knicks or Milwaukee, obviously Boston, if they had Tatum, okay, that's a different conversation. But I think Philadelphia healthy going into this year, if they can be in the playoffs and be healthy this year, I think they have a great chance to get out in the Eastern Conference. I'm really interested, though, to see how they balance giving Joel Embiid enough regular season games while also making sure he's available for the playoffs. I think in the regular season, he does need to play at least 60 games. I think is a good barometer. Maybe 55 games. Maybe they need to take a book out of what the Clippers did with Kawhi. Maybe that would help. But I think their biggest thing is during the season making sure they lean on their young guys throughout this year. Lean on VJ, lean on Tyrese Maxey, and lean on Jared McCade, lean on Justin Edwards. Lean on these young guys on your team. Like, if Philadelphia is going to get through this regular season and be a top 4 seed in the East, like, they're going to need these young guys to carry them. We know what Maxey's made of. I think we have a good idea of what McCade's made of. I think VJ somewhat is the key to some of this. And obviously Paul George as well. But I think Philadelphia is really going to need to lean on some of their younger guys in their depth this year. And that's probably, I think, why also they're trying to make sure they re-sign Quentin Grimes. But they also got to be mindful of, are you willing to sacrifice Kelly Oubre and Andre Drummond, sacrifice a little bit of this mature and, older vets for a little bit more youthness? They got to be careful how they're going to go about balancing this. But I think it's going to be paramount for the young core and for these role players to carry and help Joel Embiid get into the playoffs and be as healthy as possible, while also making sure they have a good seed within the conference. Okay, so let's talk about my players to watch. Paul George is the first player I'm going to talk about, just because I think I really want to see him try to get back to being, an all-star. I think that's a good floor to try to reach for him. I know he can't be happy about how he's performed in Philly. I think he will try his best to be available and try to perform, but I think this year is going to tell me if Paul George is washed or not. I think this is going to be a good, and I'll probably know by Christmas time. I'll know. Even if he gets hurt, we will sell our Paul George stock. I never had stock in him, but I'm just saying, we will give up on him at that point. But yeah, it's going to be, I think it's a big year for him. This is a very important year, I think, for him as a player in the NBA, knowing like, obviously this was already a bad contract that they signed him to, but can he show that he still has somewhat of value, and can he at least assist Tyrese Maxey into getting this team to the playoffs while Joel Embiid is just trying to coast through the regular season? We'll see what happens. Another player I want to talk about, I just said his name was Justin Edwards. I talked about him quite a few times last year. I expect him to show last year wasn't a fluke based off of his production. I do actually think he is actually a quality role player, and I want to see him have a very solid year off the bench for this team. Last play I want to talk about is Jared McCain. I'm interested to see, I know he's really young, but I'm still interested to see how he looks coming off of his injury. And I'm interested to see, too, how long does it take him to get back in rhythm. If I had to guess, because he's a shooter, I'm expecting he'll probably be back in rhythm probably by mid-late January, like really be in rhythm. I think more likely than not, he'll come off the bench this year as long as mostly everybody's healthy. I think he's gonna have a really good chance to be in that top 3 for 6th man of the year is what my prediction is for him if this team's going to be, obviously, I mean, more likely than not, they're not going to be healthy, but you know what I'm saying? Like, as long as they have enough health to where he can come off the bench, then I think he's for sure in that top 3 for 6th man of the year. Now, I want to talk about their draft capital. So 2026, 1 through 4, it's their pick. Otherwise, 5 through 30, it goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder. 2027, it goes to OKC if it wasn't conveyed in 2026. If so, then it's just Philadelphia's pick in 2027. They just keep their pick. 2028, 1 through 8 is their own. I'm a little confused after that. Like, there's a bunch of little like miniature stipulations of who it goes to in 2028. But then also they own the Clippers pick in 2028 as well. 2029, they have their pick, or they own swap rights for the Clippers 4 through 30 pick. And then 2030 to 2032 is their own pick. You guys let me know down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on this Philadelphia 76ers team? And what do you think they need to do? What are keys to their season in you guys' opinion? You guys let me know down in the comment section. The next team that I want to talk to you guys about is the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn last year finished 26-56. They finished 28th in offensive efficiency and 20th in defensive efficiency. Some of their free agents, Keon Johnson will be a free agent for them. They also got a bunch of guys that are going to be restricted free agents that are kind of irrelevant in my opinion. So I'm not going to sit up here and list their names. I want to talk about. Let's just go straight to the rookie watch. So they drafted Yegor Demon. To me, he was the top 3. He was top 3 best passers in the draft, in my opinion. I just really want to see him bulk up, play through contact, and improve his free throw shooting and his 3-point percentage. I also want to talk about Nolan Triati. Nolan, to me, he's a great pick and roll operator. I really want to see his jump shot fall with regularity. I've said this even last summer and even during this year's draft process. I felt like with Nolan Triati, I just don't like the form on his jumper. He kind of shoots from the side. I don't really like that personally. Another player that they drafted was Ben Saraf. He's looking to get a bucket, in my opinion. To me, he's shown flashes of being someone that you can probably depend on off the bench. So I guess, no, let me correct myself. I think he's someone that I just want to see if he can show us flashes of being somebody that can be dependable off the bench. To me, I think his play style, and I said it last year, and I still believe this, and I got to watch him last year live play, but he reminds me kind of like his play style is similar to Manu Ginobili's, in my opinion. So I'm very interested to see how he does at the next level. It doesn't mean he's going to become Manu. I'm not saying that. But the way he plays the game of basketball, to me, is very similar to Manu Ginobili's. Another player they drafted, the last player they drafted, was Danny Wolf. Danny Wolf, to me, is kind of like it's interesting. He's either going to become Kelly Olynyk, or is he going to become a poor man's Alperen Şengün? I'm just kind of interested to see which player is he going to be. He's somebody that I'm going to just be open, honest, and transparent with you guys. I was not high on him coming out. I know I've seen some people that had him in their top 10 mock drafts that are just really high on him. He just is somebody that I'm not high on at all. To me, he's very slow. I don't think he's going to be able to guard the pick and roll that well. But I could be wrong. Like I said, he's either going to become a Kelly Olynyk or he's going to become a poor man's Alperen Şengün. We're going to find out. Obviously, yes, I know he has some really good highlights, a passing. He's a very good passer, but I kind of need to see more from him, and I'm interested to see how he does at this next level personally, but I'm just not high on him as a player. I know, obviously, all these rookies, to be real, like, the benefit of these rookies on Brooklyn, they're all going to be able to play. That's the thing. They're all probably going to get shine, is what I'm expecting for them. So now I want to talk about the team's expectations / my thoughts about the team. They'll no doubt be tanking, in my opinion. I said this back in February. I still think this team still wants to get Giannis. I think that's who they want. They have the assets to go get him. They got a bunch of young players now that they can give to Milwaukee. I think they're just strictly waiting for him. I think also this upcoming draft is going to be very important to them, because if they don't do this right, in 2027, the following draft, Houston has the swap rights for their pick. So this draft and developing their young players is going to be extremely important. I'm pretty sure Cam Thomas is not going to be on the team going into next year. This upcoming draft is going to be very important for this Brooklyn Nets team. Very, very important in my opinion. I really think this team, I know they just got him, but I do think they should look at trading Michael Porter Jr. They should trade Cam Thomas. I think Cam Thomas should go to the Lakers personally. I think also they need to look at trading Nick Claxton. I think they just need to strip it down to the bone and hope to get the either number 1 or number 2 pick, so they can get DP, or they can get AJ DeBontis. Like, even Cam Boozer wouldn't be a bad option either. But I'm just saying, like, this team, to me, I think they just need to strip it down to the bone. Get some more draft capital for MPJ, for Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton, and just hope that the ping pong balls fall in their way. Another thing about Cam Thomas also is that from him picking up his qualifying offer, he sacrificed, I think, like $3 million. So now he has a no trade clause. So that's something just to keep in mind. If he does get traded, he's going to go somewhere where he wants to go. I really think the Lakers really should look at trying to get him. I know he ain't got no defense. But I would like to see him next to Luka. I think him next to Luka is like, it's like a poorer version of Luka next to Kyrie. Like, Cam Thomas can score in bunches, not to the same level or clip as Kyrie, but not that far off, better than Austin Reeves. I can depend on Cam Thomas to give me 23 to 27 a night. A little bit more consistent than I can count on Austin Reeves giving me 20, That's just my opinion. I would like to see Cam Thomas with the Lakers. I just think him and Luka together would be, I just like it. I just like the pairing. Players to watch for with this team. One is Noah Clowney. To me, he showed glimpses last year of a nice shooting touch. He shot 80% from the free throw line. I also wanted to see him take some steps and become a more serviceable backup power forward, become a little bit more efficient. I like Noah Clowney. I'm interested to see how he does. I think this will be I think he's going into year 3, if I remember correctly, is what he's going into. I know he went to Alabama. I remember that, but yeah, so he's coming out. Another player is Terrence Mann. Honestly, he should be trying to become the most improved player in the NBA. I think the opportunities will be there for him. So I'll be watching closely to see if he can make himself of true value and maybe get moved before the deadline. But that's like, I think he can become a most improved, because I have, some other players that are in mind for me for most improved. But I think Terrence Mann should be shooting to become that. If I was him, like, I would be setting my goal out to win most improved. And that's just my opinion. Now I want to talk about their draft capital. So draft capital, 2026, they own their own pick. 27, like I told you guys, Houston has the swap rights for their pick. And then they also, Brooklyn gets the New York Knicks pick. 2028, they have their own, plus Phillies 9 through 30, I think. 2029, they have their own and the Knicks pick. And then they also get the least favorable of Dallas, Phoenix, and Houston. 2030, they have their own. 2031, their own in the Knicks. And 2032, their own in Denver's. And so you guys let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets? And you guys let me know what are things about this team that you guys are going to be looking out for. The last team that I want to talk to you guys about is going to be the Toronto Raptors. Last year, Toronto finished 30-52. They finished 25th in offensive efficiency, 17th in defensive efficiency. Their free agents, Ochai Agbaji is a restricted free agent. Sandro, I cannot pronounce his last name. It's a super long last name. He has a player option. Garrett Temple is a free agent. AJ Lawson's a free agent. Now I want to talk about rookie watch. They ended up drafting Colin Murray Boyles, which for me it shocked me, truth be told, because I thought he was going to get drafted by the Bulls. I thought the Bulls was a really good fit for him. This fit's going to be, I think it's a very odd fit because to me, him and Scotty Barnes, what does that look like? You know, if he was to start, what does that look like? Does one of them's going to have to play one of them have to play the 4 and the 3, right? Like it's just weird. It's really weird. I don't know why they drafted Colin Murray Boyles. It's just a really odd fit. I do think, just specifically talking about Colin Murray though, I do love his defensive versatility. That's why I wanted him in Chicago, because I thought Chicago could really use that. But I really love his defensive versatility, and I think day one we will see that. I think he will be an impactful rookie coming off the bench for this team. Now, my team expectations, like I just told you guys, this team has got very odd fits to it. I think RJ Barrett kind of is the odd man out. If they were to move somebody, I think it's most likely going to be him. If I were the Toronto Raptors, I would look at trying to move a combination of RJ, Emmanuel Quickley, and BI, like two of those players, if I were them, to try to get some draft capital and also shed some salary from some of these players. Because I really think they should kind of try to lean in some of their young players. They have a promise. I'm not going to say promising, but an interesting young core. Let me correct myself. You know, they got Scotty Barnes. I like Grady Dick. I like Colin Murray Boyles. And they got little Jacoby Walter. And then, so I like some of those young guys for them. But I'm interested to see how the mixture of these young guys and then you got these guys that are kind of, you know, solidified players, how that mix. I do, and this may be a hot take. I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I do think they're going to make the playoffs. I think this team last year won 30 games. They didn't have BI last year, and they also had injuries last year. This team is good for at least to be 41-41. And 41-41 in the East is going to get you in the playoffs. I think this is a playoff team. Health, obviously, is the biggest concern with this team. Even though everything I said about them being an odd fit, I think this team can win enough games. I think they have enough talent. I think the guys they're established veterans on this team. A lot of these players are either going into their prime this year or already in their prime. They should be able to at least get into the playoffs, and I think they will get into the playoffs this year. That's kind of my personal opinion about this team. Players to watch for, I just named one of them. One of them is Grady Dick. I think he's somebody to watch out for Sixth Man of the Year. He had a really strong year, too. Kind of dialed back the second half of the year. But I do think Grady Dick is somebody to keep your eyes out for. And then another, I'm going to throw a wrench at you guys, is the whole starting five. Kind of just said it to you guys. How does this offense look? I think there's a lot of weird fits. And BI wasn't even in the rotation last year. So I'm very interested to see how this all looks, because they have not much spacing. A lot of guys that need the ball in their hands and not much defense in that starting lineup. So very interested to see. And then lastly, I want to talk about Jamal Shead. Jamal Shead, the thing I'll be watching out for him is does he become a household name in the second unit community in the NBA? I liked him a lot at Houston. I liked his season last year with this team. I like Jamal Shead. So I'm interested to see what he brings this year to this team. And then draft capital-wise, this team has all their picks from 2026 to 2032. And that is all I got for the Toronto Raptors. Now, you guys let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts about this Toronto team? And what is your thoughts about the entire Atlantic Division? Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Next week, we'll be talking about the Central Division. And so PJ is out.